Hello.
Hello.
I thought you were the Grandmaster.
No,
No.
2100.
You're 2100?
Yes.
I was told you're 2400.
No, 21. 2019 in rapid and 2100 in.
But you're 4 out of 4. You've won all games.
Yes, but I am only 2100.
Who's the strongest you've beaten so far?
Slim Belkoja, the Grandmaster.
You beat the Grandmaster? At this moment, I was shocked. I realized that the 2100 opponent that I was facing was not just any 2100. He was extremely strong, and I was terrified to play against him. I try to think that maybe he was just lucky in that game and that maybe he wasn't that strong, but I knew that I would have to play my best chess to beat this guy. To give a little bit of context, I was playing a chess tournament in a bar in Paris called Blitz Society. Now, this was a pretty serious chess tournament. There were grandmasters, there were international masters, and we were all fighting for some prize money. So everybody was super focused here.
Very ambitious player.
Yeah, you should be ambitious. I'm ambitious too.
Very ambitious.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Okay,
Good luck.
begin.
We shaked hands, and I started with d4, the move I always play. He replied knight f6, and then we realized that his king and queen were actually placed in the wrong squares. He ended up playing a Nimzo Indian, and I went for this queen c2 line, which is the line that I typically play. And I like it because I'm basically saying that if you take my knight, I'll be able to capture back with the queen. So this is all theory. We were both playing out these moves pretty fast, and the idea here is that I get a pretty big center. I get quite a lot of space advantage, but pretty soon he's gonna play c5 and he's immediately gonna challenge my center. This is one of the main lines against castles in the Nimzo Indian. There's several things you can play. So I played c5 now, and I can go either knight e2 or knight f3 here. And I always ask myself, which one of the two should I go for? I ended up going for knight f3, defending that pawn. And now after he captured, I captured back with the knight. And the idea here is that I'm basically threatening to capture his knight on e4. So he decided to develop his other knight, and now he's threatening my e5 pawn. I need to either defend it with f4, or I can capture that knight on e4. But if I capture twice with my bishop and my queen, it's not really something I want to do, because he's going to be able to capture my pawn with his knight, and after queen takes, he has rook e8 pinning my queen and my king. So there's a few moves in the future, but the point is that I don't really want to do big things in the center whilst my king is still in the middle of the board. That's why castling is so important. I ended up going f4, and the reason I was thinking for so long was because I was analyzing queen h4 check, as after g3, he has knight takes g3 because of my pawn on h2 being pinned due to my rook. He was also thinking, and I suspect that he was calculating that, but he ended up just playing knight c5. He did not want to enter any of those shenanigans. By the way, I love that word. I think it's such a fun word to say. I always thought it was a chess word, but apparently it's not. So now my bishop is being threatened, and I just simply decided to castle. I didn't think it really mattered that much if he captured my bishop, so I decided to leave it there. Now long term, I actually quite like my position because I'm kind of playing against this pawn on d5, which is right now an isolated pawn, as there's no other pawns that are defending it. He ended up capturing my knight with the bishop. I captured back. My pawn on c3 was also quite weak, but I was really happy about the fact that my bishop on c1 could finally have a path it could go to. Bishop a3 seemed like a very strong move at some point during the game. By the way, I also want to make a point that I am right now drinking Coca-Cola. Nothing else. He spent quite some time thinking, and I thought, he probably realizes that this game is being harder than he thought it was going to be. And I was really happy about that. He played f5, which solidifies his knight on e4, but it also allows my e-pawn to become a protected passed pawn for the rest of the game, giving me a huge advantage for endgames. I saw this long-term idea and I was very happy about that. And I knew that I did not want to take en passant because I did not want to get rid of that amazing e-pawn that I had. I sometimes even saw that my knight could perhaps go to b5 and d6, or that I could just simply go bishop a3 here. I decided to go bishop a3, pinning his c5 knight, now threatening to capture on e4 with my bishop, and if he captures with his knight, then I will be able to take his rook. So he defended his knight with b6. I was looking at ideas of going bishop takes e4 and then going knight b5 to get a knight up to d6. It seemed like a really strong move. But I didn't really like the fact that if my light squared bishop disappeared, he would be able to go bishop a6 and take control of my light squares. I had to come up with a better plan. I went c4, trying to eliminate that d5 pawn that was right now defending his knight. This was one of the best moves in the position and I'm so happy that I found it. What is my threat? I'm threatening to go c takes d5, and after he captures back with the queen, I have bishop c4, which would just win a queen. I could tell that he wasn't very happy with this position, and I was feeling more and more confident. I knew that I was better, and I knew that I had more time as well. So this seemed like a perfect moment for me to enjoy the position in front of me. He went rook e8, and I immediately realized that I could capture that pawn on d5 because he cannot capture it back. I was very shocked when he played that move, and I was asking myself, what happens if I capture that pawn on d5? What are you going to do? I started by going knight c6, and I could tell that he had not seen that move. I was threatening his queen, and my idea was that after he moves his queen, I will capture the pawn on d5, but I wanted to start by placing my knight on c6. He was clearly worried about this move. He went queen d7, and now I capture the pawn on d5. He traded my bishop, and after queen takes, I was now defending that d5 pawn, and that was the idea of first moving the knight, that if I didn't do it in this order, then my d5 pawn would be hanging. I thought I was completely winning here, and that I was completely dominating the position. So after bishop b7, he was threatening to take my knight, and I could not capture back because then my queen would be hanging. I had to defend my knight or move it. I decided to defend it. There was no place I wanted to move that knight, and I also wanted to get my rook active. Rook c1, defending the knight. He decided to attack it again with his rook. Once again, his threat is to capture my knight, as if I capture back with my rook, he can recapture it with his rook, and then I cannot capture with my d-pawn because my queen is hanging. My time started getting very low, and he realized that the only way he could beat me from this position was with my time. So he started playing very quickly to try to flag me. I knew I couldn't let that happen, but nerves started to kick in because I realized that I was beating one of the strongest players of this whole tournament. I was completely winning. I could not throw at this moment. I had to finish the game strong. I started getting really stressed. I knew that my time was ticking down. I only had 15 seconds left, and I went e6. I was threatening his queen, and the idea was that if he captures my pawn, I had this intermediate move, knight e5, threatening his queen and defending my queen too. I really liked this move e6, but I had spent too long calculating it. He shook his head. He didn't know where to go. He almost had no squares for his queen. The only square he had was c7. I was happy about having found that move, as I realized that it was probably the strongest move in the position, but we were both so low on time at this point. He found no other option than to sacrifice his rook. He was even lower on time than me. He only had 9 seconds left on the clock. We both thought that this was over. He captured my knight with 2 seconds left. I decided to trade rooks in between just to get last pieces on the board. He captured. I captured back. I had those two really strong pawns in the center. I was completely winning. It was +3 for me. Then all of a sudden, his queen comes in. I realized that he's trying to do something on my king. I didn't really understand what he was doing, but I thought that there's no way that he has any sort of counterattack here. But little did I know that he did. I made a mistake. I went back with my queen. I didn't understand why it was a mistake. I was so low on time, but his bishop and his queen were so strong. My pawn started falling. I had no checks. I didn't know how to keep my pawns together. I went queen g3, said if he captures my pawn, I have queen b8 check. But then I just missed. I went wrong with my king, and I just missed that he had a checkmate, and I was completely lost after this, and here I resigned. He shook his head because he knew that he had been lucky to win that position, and I could not believe that I had lost that game. And that just showed how his bishop and his queen could together maneuver into a win. I was very sad after the game. Even though I didn't seem sad, I was smiling. I was very sad. We were discussing the game. But I just couldn't believe that I had lost that position. And I was very upset with myself of having let that go. Yeah, it is what it is. Thank you. Time trouble ended up ruining that game. But my opponent was very nice. And I knew that I just had to come stronger for the rest of the games. I hope you've enjoyed this voiceover, and let me know in the comments down below if you want to see more games being commentated like this. Thank you so much for watching the video. Okay, go and get 7 out of 7 now.
Thank you.